Good morning, wizards. This past year, I started working with a farmer's market in a small town north of Lansing. The farmer had previously used off-site signs for his directional messages and point of purchase signs to emphasize the products he harvested. I thought radio could reach a wider audience and increase his business. My challenge was how to use radio for name and location awareness and to change the products each month as the seasons evolved. To do this, we used a familiar theme with revised lyrics. We then changed the product script in the last few seconds of each ad. The problem is we had to break one of Roy's rules about not ruining a good ad narrative by shifting in the middle of the message to a bunch of ad speak, points that the client wants to emphasize. Attached is an example of one of the ads we created. Can you suggest a way to focus on the products differently? Do you have any suggestions that would make it better? Thanks, Lee. So what I want to do now is let's go ahead and play that 1 minute audio ad, and then I want to get your guys' thoughts afterwards.
Hello, I'm Andy T.
Andy T's is a source, of course, for fruits and vegetables you'll endorse. It's an added trip that you will force out to Andy T's. Go right to the source for your discourse. You'll never experience buyer's remorse. North 27, you're right on course. Out to Andy T's. No one will yakety yak, you see, and waste your time away. Whatever you buy from Andy T's, you know it will blow you away. Andy T's is the source, of course, and this one won't cause you to get a divorce. Drive on 27 North, drive on 27 North, and go to Andy T's.
Get it right from the horse's mouth. Andy T's has the juiciest Michigan apples, tomatoes, and best corn on the cob you can buy. Then come by Andy T's for the biggest pumpkin contest on Saturday, September 24th, or take the hayride to the You Pick Pumpkin Patch. Take US 27 North to St. John's for the best taste and the most fun this autumn.
So, Asia, I see your face. I want to start with you. Give us some thoughts.
Okay. I mean, my very first thought was it's great that you had the wisdom to get him on the radio. I think that's absolutely brilliant on your part. I'm afraid that because of the 45-second song intro, and it's the same song intro for every ad every month, I'm afraid that it's going to get played out and people aren't going to listen to it. I don't want you to fall into the trap of assuming that people are listening to your ads and assuming that they're going to stay to the end to find out what new products or events you have going on. I always try and come at it from the angle of assuming that people are not listening to my ads. They don't want to listen to me. They don't want to hear from me. So I have to be interesting in order for them to listen to me. I have to get their attention. And what gets people's attention is being new, surprising, and different, because we have this area in our brain called Broca, and it's a part of our brain that anticipates and hates predictable patterns. So if it sees the same pattern enough times, it's not going to pay attention to it anymore. So Broca is the doorway into our long-term memory. So in order to get past Broca, it's that guard in our mind that doesn't let things be remembered that don't matter. We have to be new, surprising, and different. We have to surprise Broca somehow and basically trick Broca into letting us get into long-term memory. So I mean, the easiest way to bore a person is to say and do what they expect you to do. So if people expect this song every single ad, they're not going to pay attention. And at the end of those 45 seconds, I mean, this jingle's so long, it has a bridge. And it's a long listen, especially to people who don't know you or who may not want to listen to your ad. And then at the very end, you scream in this Billy Mays type voice. You just like scream like the new products or like the events that are coming up so fast, and people don't really like being yelled at. I don't like being yelled at. And that, it sounds like a furniture store, every furniture commercial where they just scream out the new specials to you. So I also think that asking somebody to listen to you for an entire minute is asking for a huge favor. I mean, there's so many other things they could listen to or concentrate on in that minute. So I think the best thing to do is to entertain them for that minute, make them want to listen to you. And also, you're not talking about the customer to the customer. You're singing Andy T's praises and you're all about the business and the products of the business. And the customer's left sitting there like, why should I care? Why should I listen to this song? Why should I care about these events? Instead, I think it would it would better serve you to really shorten that jingle to maybe 5 seconds at the very end of your ad. And in the beginning of your ad, start out with the new products and the events that you have, because I mean, it's a fresh corn, fresh tomatoes, and fresh apples are great, but you call them delicious. And delicious is a concept, and we can't visualize concepts in our head very easily, because when you say delicious tomato, everybody's going to have a different mental image. So I think you should start talking to them in very vivid mental imagery, very visual words and phrases. Don't tell me the tomatoes are delicious. Describe. I mean, show me that the tomatoes are delicious. Show me, you know, I want to hear like the sound of you biting into a crisp apple or something. And also, I want to hear more from Andy T. I looked at your guys' website and you guys have a great story. Andy T seems like a real character. I would rather hear from Andy T than from a jingle and in a weird disembodied voice at the very end, because people are going to connect more to a more humanized ad than a jingle and a disembodied voice. I think you should introduce them more to Andy T. If you haven't already, I think you should continue introducing him because he has a great story, and also show them what it's like being at the farmer's market. You know, describe, you know, like Dave was talking about the five senses, you know, what does it smell like? What does it sound like? You know, what does it feel like being there? Because there's so many different activities you guys have to do there too. I just think there's a huge, rich, untapped potential that is being covered up by that really long jingle.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think there are ways. I think you're right onto it about ways to fix it. We've heard Roy say over the years, there's three nitroglycerins of advertising. There's humor, there's drama, dialogue, and music, jingles. And I agree, like to go on for 45 seconds with the same thing, right? Like if you wanted to keep somebody's attention every time this ad came on, the lyrics would be different every time, right? And the lyrics might have something to do with sweet corn or whatever's coming in seed. Like if you could write it about the products that are being mentioned and had the bandwidth to actually record a new song each time, that would be pretty amazing. Yeah. Or just cut it to one little verse, like Asia said, and then interrupt it with, "It's sweet corn season. Oh my God!" Right? It's like, you know, it's there are just things that you could do. That the danger is that you hear that once or twice, and now it's like every time it comes on, you know, you've got to sit through 45 seconds of it before you find out even what the newest produce is. And I think that's the danger in it. That's the nitroglycerin gone wrong. Is it's a powerful tool. Used correctly, it can do amazing things, and used incorrectly can be kind of disastrous. You can actually damage some things. And if you spend 45 seconds getting people to tune out before you get to the meat of the message, that's a big risk. I think it's creative, and I think it could be fixed. I really do. And I again, kudos for getting them on the air. And honestly, there's probably not a lot of other farmers markets. So is it giving them a higher share of voice? Of course. Is it converting to share of mind? Yeah, as long as there's not a lot of other farmers markets doing better ads with higher impact quotients. But you could up the impact quotient of this, and then again think about ways that they're delivering an experience. It's yeah. I think it could really be improved on.
Yeah, and so I agree with both of you. Excellent points. And so the only thing I would add is from a strategy perspective, from the media buy. Now, basically, based on, and I agree with what Asia and Dave, what you've said, is that it's actually, and look, we're rounding. It's 45 seconds of the same song and then 15 seconds of an ad. So when you actually stop and think about it, the client's paying for a 60-second ad spot and only getting a 15.
Kind of,
Because
yeah.
every time you play that jingle, it's just going to become invisible. And so tighten it up. And Lee, I know you work for the radio station, so I know you want them to have a 60, but do the right thing for your client. If you want them to spend, if they've got the budget and they're buying 60s, then just redirect that. Don't tell them to spend less, but tell them, hey, what if we did 30s and you tighten up that creative and then
Yeah.
run more 30s instead of running 60s, but they're really only getting a 15 because that's
Yeah.
all the copy you're changing out. So
I mean, you can
that
you
sound
can
fair?
you can keep people engaged for 60 seconds. You just have to be entertaining, and then you've got to switch it up the next time they hear it. It can't be the same, right? You get a
Yeah.
little burnout if you don't. Asia?
Well, I also agree with your point about maybe cutting it in half and doing 230s instead of 160, because you also have a lot of different points going on at the very end of that ad. You have, okay, so you're featuring apples, corn, and tomatoes this month, but then you also have the biggest pumpkin contest and you have a hayride. You could split those into a 30 about the biggest pumpkin contest and the hayride to the pick your own pumpkin patch, and a 30 spot about the fresh vegetables that you have featured this month.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a catchy jingle. So we're not saying ditch the jingle, just tighten it up.
Yeah.
And it will be an earworm. And I think you're going to do great things, Lee. So thanks for sending in your question this month.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.